Welcome back to another post game here on Mets Central as the Mets drop game 148 of the season 8-3 to the Texas Rangers, putting themselves in a spot where they could only lose one more game to match last year's win total. They'd have to go undefeated to beat last year's win total, which I thought should have been a slam dunk. Um they put themselves in a spot where by the end of the night, the San Francisco Giants and the Cincinnati Reds, both those teams could be half a game back of the Mets. That's where we're at. And I get it. People are upset. Jonah Tong didn't give a good start. I get it. And I'm not going to sit here and act like it's okay. There is part of me that isn't going to sit here and ridicule the kid, though, because at the end of the day, this would not be the case if you had veteran starting pitchers performing to the level that they should. If you had a GM that addressed the starting pitching rotation the way that it should have been addressed. So, as much as Tong needs to be better, because walking three batters, especially the leadoff hitter, which kind of set the tone for the way his outing would go, to be honest with you. He bounces back with the strikeout, gets 2 outs, and I'm like, okay, maybe there's a chance he gets out of this. But then it ends up just blowing up in his face. Pause. But nonetheless, I'm not going to sit here and act like Jonah Tong is the issue when the bottom line is you have a staff that has veterans in it. You have a general manager that formed that staff, and they're not good enough. Plain and simple. There's no way around it. There's no if, ands, or buts about it. This is the reality of the situation. And unfortunately for Jonah Tong, who is just starting games in Double A, welcome to the big leagues, kid. You got a lot of pressure. You're the more hyped up prospect than Noah McLean, but Noah McLean has been otherworldly. Good luck, kid. We all wanted Tong up, but he's not ready. Unfortunately, he's not ready. And I don't think he's going to make his next start now, because now I'm thinking Kodai Senga just had a pretty good start down in AAA. I don't think Tong's making his next start. I could be very wrong. I'd be surprised, though. I'd be very surprised. He might have earned his way back to Syracuse. And it's unfortunate because I wanted him to thrive. He will thrive one day. I'm not writing off Jonah Tong entirely. I'm talking for the immediate right now. They are probably going to send him down, and I wouldn't disagree with the decision entirely, even though Senga, I wouldn't rush that off of one start. So maybe you give Tong one more start. I don't know. But I'm not sitting here telling you Tong's no good. He's never going to be successful in the big leagues. It's just for right now. You could see the tools. There are things there. He just needs to really work on the command, which was an issue that we heard with him coming up. And the bottom line is, again, that's going to have to be ironed out. It will be. But for right now, it's unfortunate that the Mets are in a spot where they can't afford to. I don't know if they can afford to send him back out there and see if he bounces back. That's really the big thing. Is like, I don't know if you're in a spot to do that. Again, not that Seng has been better, but it just, what do you do? Because you are in a race for your playoff hopes at this point. So forget about potentially getting the third or the second wild card spot or the first. No. They are fighting to stay in, and that is it. And I do not think they are going to make it. I want to make that clear. But again, I'm not going to sit here and ridicule Tong, even though it was not good enough. And he needs to be way better than that because he is on the big league roster at the end of the day for a reason. But I'm not going to fault him. And I'm sorry if that upsets people, but I'm not there. Because again, this wouldn't be the predicament that you're in if you had veterans that were good enough to get the job done. And this offense, I get that you go down 6-0 in the first inning, but this is the shit show that you put together after allowing essentially a perfect game yesterday. This is the output. One inning where you're able to hit the baseball. Congrats. Congratulations. They had a hit in the second, and they had a hit in the ninth. Or sorry, the eighth. Outside of that, I don't think I'm wrong. I don't think they had a hit outside of that. And then, of course, the inning they scored, which is, of course, the tendency with this team where bipolar offense. And they pulled themselves back in 6-3. But you know what this team has shown all year? And you know why I sit here and say confidently this team isn't going to the playoffs or none. Forget about winning a World Series, which is what I was saying weeks ago, months ago. The reason they're not even making the playoffs is games like this, where your offense that you are paying this offense to be the backbone of this team. Sometimes they got to pick up the pitcher's slack. It shouldn't be every night, but there are times it needs to happen. And you pull yourself in 6-3 in the third inning, and then you don't play the rest of the game. Nothing happens offensively the rest of the game. And it's inexcusable because it happens far too often with this team. And how many times have please, somebody enlighten me. How many times I've come on to these post-game shows talking about how they'll have 1 or 2 innings where they score, and then the rest of the game they do nothing. Even during the wins, how many times have I talked about it here? And then Jeff McNeil, inexcusable. You're really going up there and you're complaining about a borderline pitch, getting yourself ejected in the fourth inning when your team is trying to make a comeback. I complained about the complaining in yesterday's post game and in the podcast episode. You cannot get ejected there over a borderline call. Throwing a tantrum to that degree. Are you kidding me? That is just so inexcusable to happen. And that's how you know this thing is boiling over. Gregory Soto, he is horrible. I'm so glad he is a rental. I am so thankful I don't have to watch Gregory Soto pitch next year. The guy stinks. Letting Dylan Moore hit a home run. Okay. All right. And I get that the bullpen options were thin tonight, but I am sorry. You just, and Reed Garrett got out of it, but why, when you need to get Reed Garrett right, are you putting him in back-to-back days after he struggled as much as he did in the prior game? I'm just asking the questions here. And again, I get that there weren't a lot of options, and I don't know where Mendoza maybe could have gone. Maybe to Raley, who only faced one batter, but I get you want to save him for tomorrow, but save him for tomorrow. Like, does that matter anymore? Saving a guy for tomorrow? Does that matter anymore? And it was so obvious Jacob DeGrom would do what he did. Honestly, I was wrong though. I thought he would get a bunch of strikeouts tonight. I thought that was free money. I was very, very wrong. Easy work though for him today. Just easy work. But you know why he didn't get a lot of strikeouts? Because you have the Mets just making weak contact the entire night. This is just so aggravating that I have to do this. That I have to sit here and talk about the same garbage on a nightly basis and sit here and watch the slow, painful death that is this season. That's what it comes down to. I have to watch the slow, painful death because the writing is just on the wall for this to be a collapse to where they don't make it. And if you can't accept that, then I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what more you need to say. Unbelievable. And how about Brandon Nimmo too? What was it? The first inning, right? Where he has that ball hit in the outfield and he's tumbling to make a play. How about when Brazabon's out there and Pete Alonso holds the ball, like double clutches, first, second holds the ball. Brazabon late to cover, which is on him. But Alonso holds the ball, and then all of a sudden he's like, actually, let me try to throw it. Almost throws it at Brazabon's head there, which who knows how the rest of the night would have went then from then on out because Brazabon ended up eating a lot of innings for you. But it's just like it's what I've been talking about with those guys defensively. It's what I've talked about with this team. They are constructed poorly, fundamentally flawed. They don't have enough they don't can't talk. They don't have enough athletes on this team. And they also aren't good enough offensively either on top of that. Cedric Mullins has a worse arm than a newborn baby. Pete Alonso, horrible. Horrible at first base. Brandon Nimmo, I mean, just the paths he takes to snag a ball in the outfield, it's painful to watch. Vientos is a DH on a nightly basis for a reason. And they were talking about with McNeil even too, like when Beatty ended up making that grab at second base, they're like, yeah, McNeil probably doesn't make that grab. Ron, I think, said it. Yeah, because his team isn't good defensively. It's that simple. They don't have enough guys that could play their own position. And then on top of that, they are not providing the offense to make up for it. That is a poorly constructed team. It's that simple. You could get away with it when you're Juan Soto and you hit the way you do. The rest of these guys, nope, 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 nope. No, they can't. Not at all. Especially Alonso and Nimmo, who are as streaky as they are. Let's see what Mendoza's saying to the media. I can't wait to hear this. Because let's not forget, too, yesterday he told us that he's got to do a better job. Well, I don't know what you said, but clearly you're not delivering the right message still. He said, he shares his message about Tong's outing. Keep your head up, keep going. There's no other way around it. I I don't know how to feel about that. I don't like that quote for some reason, but I'm also trying to gather what he could say that would make me feel better about that. But at the end of the day, if he's saying that to the media and saying something different to Tong, fine. But if that's what he's saying to Jonah Tong, then that's horrible. That's straight up horrible. And then we have a Tong quote. I just feel bad for him. I don't really care. Like he said, I didn't give the start that I had wanted for sure. It's not your fault you're in this position, kid. It's not your fault. Tong simply isn't ready for the big leagues. This doesn't mean he's a bad pitcher at all, but he definitely should have spent more time in AAA, and it should have been Spro before him. I couldn't agree more. And I was very surprised too when it was the other way around for a reason. To be fair, in this scenario, Gregory Soto faced one batter. I agree with this when he faces multiple batters. He faced one batter, though, in the previous inning. But normally I would agree with that. Yeah. And how about this as well? And I get that you might want to give him the space because he's upset, but that to me was odd. Oh, here we go. A Will Salmon tweet. Let's read this one out. The Mets have lost 7 games in a row. It's their third 7 game losing streak this season. The last time the Mets had 3 7 game losing streaks in one season was 1980. By the way, I didn't even mention the stat. I can't believe I forgot to mention it on the podcast today that I wanted to read that the Mets are the only team in modern baseball to score 4 runs in an inning and then not get a base runner in any other inning. Making the right history, boys. Good job. I want to hurl. And I'm not saying you guys because you guys that watch the channel are smart enough to not sit here and blame Jonah Tong. You guys are smart enough. For me, this is really to the people that are clueless and don't know what they're talking about, that are complaining about him for whatever reason and saying it's his fault. Because unfortunately, there are people that are saying that. Because unfortunately, in this fan base, I mean, every fan base has those kind of fans, but you get what I'm saying. Yeah, I mean, it's just unfair to him. Offense could only score in one inning. Yay. It's getting to that point, CJ. It's getting to that point where it feels like they are. Although hindsight is 2020, you can't say that the Mets trade deadline this year wasn't a disaster. Obviously, it didn't look bad on paper, but man, has it been horrible in reality. Yeah. I mean, the thing that isn't hindsight is the Mullins thing to a degree because not that Mullins was the problem, but we always did say they kind of had to settle for Mullins because Bader was already gone. And I honestly, I'm not going to sit here and play revisionist history. I wanted Mullins more than Bader, but Bader was already gone. Robert wasn't going to get moved. It came down to you had to get Mullins. What I was mad about at the deadline was two things. One, they didn't add a starting pitcher. Two, I wanted another bat. And as much as it was nice that they addressed the bullpen, even though it has not worked out well, they were kind of half pregnant in the regard at the deadline with you really needed a starting pitcher and you didn't go out and get a starting pitcher. And you really needed another bat and you didn't go out and get another stick. That's kind of my problem there. It's like more about what, for me right now, it's kind of more about what they didn't do versus what they did to a degree, because obviously it's blown up in their face a lot of what they did. But I mean, to me, you had to go out and get like a Merrill Kelly or a Shane Bieber, take a flyer on him, and then go out and get. The guy that I wanted offensively was someone like Brandon Lau or Yandy Diaz from the race, who didn't get moved, obviously. So I don't know what the asking price was there, but nonetheless, that's really just how I feel about that. McNeil shouldn't have thrown a tantrum, but at least he has emotion. The rest of the team needs to be checked for a pulse, no fight, no urgency. I can't sit here and say that, because to me the solution isn't to go up there and start blowing a hissy fit about the calling things. Be angry in front of your teammates or like in the clubhouse and show some fire. When you got three different 7-game losing streaks, almost every coach has to go, and guys from the core have to be moved. Couldn't have said it better myself. And that's the conversation we're going to have in a couple of weeks here, because at this rate, I'm not even going to sit here and say, prove me wrong. I'm not going to sit here and say I will be wrong. I am saying with the utmost confidence, in a few weeks, we will be having these conversations. In 3 weeks from today, we'll be having these conversations. Got Phillies fans in here. I can't sit here and get mad. They have every right to talk shit right now. What am I supposed to say? Other than, I mean, if you're going to talk shit, they better show it up in the playoffs for your sake. That's all I could say if I was a Phillies fan. But can't sit here and get mad at them for laughing it up. I'd be doing the exact same thing if it was the other way around. Frank and Tommy Lugauer, yeah, I saw that, or I heard that. No, they're not making the playoffs. They're not at all. And this is the problem. The pitch to McNeil was too close to take, and that's just the problem in general with this team offensively. The plate approach is just not there. It just is not there at all. Jacob DeGrom on his debut, or on his Citi Field return. You did mention debut in the phrase here, though, or in the quote. I wanted to throw up all day, honestly. It felt like I was making my debut. Man. Very odd to me still, too, how the Mets allowed 6 runs in the first inning. And here they go, Jacob DeGrom taking them out. Instead of, like, playing Simple Man or no music, just letting the crowd give DeGrom a standing ovation. You got the DJ going there being like, all right, let's get this party started. Like, come on. How much of a joke are you? I'm sick. I'm sick from all this. But at the end of the day, I'm not surprised because of the fact that this has happened multiple times throughout the season, like we highlighted, 7 game losing streaks. And this is also where I question David Stearns and say, how has there not been a midseason firing for Chavez and Barnes at least? I was questioning it obviously months ago, and now it's too late to do that. But it's just like, how? You just further ask questions now. Yeah. Jacob DeGrom was nauseous going out there and 6 pitches in the first inning. He had to sit there for an additional 30 minutes on top of that. Oh, man. So aggravated. All right. Think I'm done here. Leave a like if you enjoyed. Subscribe. Turn on your notifications. We'll be back again tomorrow after probably a loss. See you guys then.